Finally, make sure that your window isn't too narrow to accept a replacement. The sill should be at least 3¼ inches from the trim in the front to the trim in the back of an open window. Round the shortest measurements for width and height down to the nearest eighth of an inch. These will be the dimensions for ordering your replacement windows. Get more info at bobvila.com and right here at home with me, Bob Vila.
Every home has a to-do list. That leaky drain, bare spots on the lawn, repainting the trim. To finally get that to-do list done, call in a pro. Over the past 20 years, Home Advisor has connected over 100 million homeowners with trusted local pros. And during these times, we're making it easier than ever for great pros to join the Home Advisor network. For a limited time, home service businesses can get $200 in free advertising. Visit homeadvisor.com/start for details. That's homeadvisor.com/start.
Capital One knows life doesn't alert you about your credit card.
Hey, couch surfers, we've got nonstop tunes to keep you rocking while you work. Oh, and Colleen, yes, you Colleen with a K. Your free trial of Movie Plus ends tomorrow, and your card may be charged. Do you want to continue or cancel?
So meet Eno, the Capital One assistant. Eno looks out for surprise charges, like when free trials expire, and helps if you need to fix them. Eno, another way Capital One is watching out for your money when you're not. Capital One, what's in your wallet? Limitations apply.
Just a reminder from your friends at ON Radio. ON Cares. The number of deaths in Massachusetts from coronavirus are continuing to climb. State officials there say 57 new deaths from the virus were confirmed yesterday, along with more than 400 new positive tests. The number of deaths from coronavirus in Massachusetts is approaching 6,500. The number of people hospitalized has now dropped 40% since mid-April, but over 2,100 patients are still in state hospitals. A Connecticut man involved in a car crash.
Good morning and welcome to Coffee and, the longest-running panel discussion show in American radio. To make a comment or ask a question to the panel, call 401-766-1240 or email at joe@onesocketradio.com. And now, let's join the Coffee and panel on ON 1240, WOON One Socket Radio.
And here on ON AM and FM, thanks for joining us on this Thursday morning. It's May 28th. I'm Joe Callahan. Joining me at the Coffee and table, Dave Richards is here. Good morning, Dave.
Good morning there, Joe. How are you?
I'm all right. How are you?
Just the same as I was when we talked 45 minutes ago.
Oh, that's good. So
having a wonderful time.
Excellent. Joining us on the phone this morning, Bob Lauder. Good morning, Bob.
Good morning. Good to be with you.
A little tough to hear, Bob.
Well, let's turn him up a little.
Good morning. Good to be with you.
All right. Thanks. And later, we're going to be joined by...
Gee whiz, Joe. You're chopping up like heck. I know you're doing what I'm telling you to do, but this thing is working against you. I don't know what the issue is. But I can't be where you are to test it out and fix it for you, so go back to 10.
All right. Is this any better?
Yeah, probably.
Okay. This morning we're going to be joined at 8:30 by Dennis Grove from Mobility by Dennis.
No, geez, this is awful. You're bouncing back through the system. Okay. Mm-hmm. We'll tough it out, kid.
Okay. Anyway, comments and questions can be called in at 766-1240, or you can email them in to me, joe@onesocketradio.com. How are you doing, Bob?
I'm doing good. Can you tell me again else is going to be on, because that part got garbled?
His name is Dennis Grollo, and he is the owner of a company called Mobility by Dennis. And he basically builds ramps for your home if you need a ramp for a scooter or a wheelchair. And he's been doing this for over 20 years. So so we're going to talk to him about his business and how long he's been doing it, and things like that. So get your questions ready. Okay. I do have a question though for you, Bob. And
Doesn't he always?
Well, it's right up. It's right up his. Bob says, "Why don't you talk to me about estate trusts and things like that?" Like,
Yeah,
oh yeah,
yeah.
that's a good answer. That's a good. That's a reasonable question. It's not about estates or trusts, though, Bob. It's more about having a will, and you must have sat through some interesting. That's a good way to put it. Interesting sessions where a family member has died and they don't have a will. And so, what happens? What happens when someone passes away and a will is not around?
And is the answer different in Massachusetts and Rhode Island?
Yeah,
Yes,
that's a good.
But I'll talk to you about Rhode Island because I don't know Massachusetts. I'm not licensed to practice over there. Basically, the law says that in the event of your death, your property divides into a number of different areas. You have some property which you may have jointly held with someone else, like you and your spouse may be on your real estate. And when you received the real estate, you probably received it in one of two forms, either as a joint tenancy or something called a tenancy by the entirety. And both of those mean that upon the death of one of the individuals whose name is on the deed, the property automatically passes to the other person without having to go through probate. You may have the same thing happen with bank accounts, but you also may have assets that are in your name alone. A bank account that you kept on your own because it was a secret from your spouse, an interest in stocks that you may have purchased in your name alone. Things like that are in your name alone, or if you're a single individual and your real estate is in your name alone, has to go through probate administration because since you're dead, no one else has the immediate authority to make a new deed and pass your house to someone else. The bank will not release money from a single named account on the death of the depositor until they have a document from a probate court that appoints somebody to do that. The law of the state of Rhode Island will say, in the absence of a will, this property that goes through probate administration gets passed on to, and then it divides it down who it would be. First would be your spouse. Your spouse would have an interest, but not necessarily the whole interest in the property, if you had children. If you have no spouse, then it passes to your children and on to their grandchildren. If you don't have children, it starts running backwards through your family to your mom and dad, who may not be alive, on to your brothers and sisters, your nieces and nephews, and sort of spreads out through the family tree. There's a lot of good reasons why people should try to avoid that kind of a situation. And one of the things I always tell people about joint accounts and things like that, I do not recommend that people put their children's names on their bank account. I know it's a temptation. You think it's going to be easy. The kids can go and handle the money for you in the event that you can't get to the bank on your own. But putting other people's names on your account has a big drawback, and that is that you name someone else as a owner of this asset, and you don't have control over what happens in their lives. For example, they have creditors that are coming after them for debts that they owe. They've lost cases, judgments are against them. The assets could be attached. The other person who's on the account with you, your child, is involved in one of the bloodbath divorces of our time, and everyone's fighting over property. The divorced spouse may be saying, hey, your name's on that, part of it should be up for marital distribution. So there's lots of things you should consider along that line. Thanks for giving me the time to advertise. Great.
Not a problem, Bob.
No, that's important stuff. You got to think about that.
Mm-hmm. And when things go through probate, how long does it take for an average case to get through?
Well, the law requires that the probate estate has to remain open for at least 6 months after the day that the clerk of the probate court places a public advertisement that says someone's been appointed as the administrator or the executor. And that 6 months allows creditors to come forward and file claims. And thereafter, how quickly you close down the estate probably depends on how long it's going and, what assets you have and what the various beneficiaries want to do. I would think that most probate estates would probably be closed within about a year, maybe a year and a half after they're first opened. However, I can tell you one story that many years ago, there was a lawyer here in Woonsocket who he was closing down his practice. He was very elderly, and he asked me to come in and help him do it, and I did. And in the course of that, I realized that he had an estate that had been opened the year before I was born, and it was still open. And when you first see that, you think, "What are they doing? That sounds like it's completely negligent." And then he explained to me. He said, "No, look at what's going on in this estate. This was a case where the father had actually made a will, and the will had said that he was not leaving certain assets to his spouse. And the two children were saying, wait a minute, that's not fair to Mom. So we leave the estate open until Mom passes away so that she still has use of the house and things like that, which had been in the dad's name alone. And she doesn't get completely deprived of what we think she should have received." So it made perfect sense.
Okay.
And
that
Bob,
estate had been going on for like 30 years.
And speaking of delays, now COVID has introduced additional delays into the process that are unique, right?
Well, the courts are holding different kinds of sessions. As you know, the governor of the state and the state Supreme Court virtually closed the courts for anything except emergency matters until the beginning of next week.
Right.
And next week they're opening up. They've sent out notifications as to how they want to do various kinds of cases. They're speaking about doing conferencing cases where you do it over a computer system. Although I was talking to someone yesterday who said that did not work out particularly well with the system that they were operating on. And the courts are coming back. They're coming back slowly, and cases are going to be delayed far into the future. I think I told you last week that we have a simple divorce case that was scheduled to come up in the middle of May. There's nothing terrible about it. The parties have agreed to everything. It's a 15-minute appearance in court, and it's been continued to the 27th of August because they just have so many things that they weren't able to do that they've had to push off into the future. But it doesn't mean that justice stops entirely. No. We'll still have lawyers hanging around and earning a little bit of money along the way.
Yeah, of course. All right, some good news in the news today, Dave, that the mayor of Woonsocket announced that another business is going to relocate to the city of Woonsocket. Crime restoration and remediation is going to move from Lincoln to Woonsocket. So that's some good news.
Well, we all knew, you're right about that, Joe. We all knew that, of course, when the industrial park was built there, that it had the potential of being very, very good for the city and nearby Cumberland. And so that's why they put so much into it. And indeed, it has enjoyed a good occupancy rate, if not a full occupancy rate, for quite some time. In fact, the announcement before this of the Franklin Company coming in, they have to build new because the occupancy rate has been so high there. But it is a desirable location with Route 99 dumping right into that, plus the venerable Route 122 dispersing people and trucks and stuff like that to various areas. So, yeah, it was a good idea a long time ago. It's still a good idea now, and it's serving us well.
Dave, can you do a quick scan of the Call newspaper article, and can you find out what crime restoration and remediation actually do?
No, it's not in the paper. That was a press release from the mayor, and I have put that in the other room. I'll have to owe that to you.
Okay, I was just wondering how long they've been in Lincoln, and then in what they manufacture or what do they restore, that kind of thing.
Well, what would you like them to restore?
Well, do they go in after like? Yeah, you.
Did you hear that?
Yeah, I don't think they can do that, Bob. That's a good answer. But do they go in? Do they go in after a fire and clean up a business and do that kind of restoring?
Yeah, let's find out because I have the press release in front of me now.
Okay.
And let's see. They have an affiliated company, Rapid Response Restoration. It's an industry leader in providing 24-hour emergency response for disaster recovery for both residential and commercial properties. In response to the COVID-19 crisis, the owner of the company, Joseph Solomon, cites that their team has also been providing cleaning and disinfecting services to businesses throughout the region to provide safe opening and operation.
Okay. So
that's what they do.
So I was kind of correct. An emergency, fire, maybe a flood, or if a hurricane blew through, and they would take care of that as well. Okay.
That's your
Excellent.
who you going to call answer. Yeah,
basically, we got a lot of, you got a lot of water in the building. What do we do? And it's ruined all the carpets. What do we do now? Okay.
Yeah, I know a man who does that kind of work, and he said you wouldn't even consider some of the things that he gets called out for. Things and he mentioned a couple of them, and one of them was like, there was a mass murder in a motel. You have to go in and clean it up.
Clean it, yeah.
After the cops are done, you got to go put that room back to use again. And he said you have to get in the biohazard suit, and you have to do this, that, and the other. He says we get paid well. He says, but it's rotten work.
Wow, that must be difficult.
Yeah.
So,
but somebody's got to do it, right? I mean, that's one of those. It's one of those jobs that everybody figures there's somebody who does that, but we don't really think about what it takes to get it done.
Wow.
All right, Dave. Our friend Paul Vanas sent me a quick email about Prime.
Hi, Paul.
He sent me their Facebook page, and basically it says everything that you just said of what they do.
Oh.
So good. Thank you, Paul.
Thanks, Paul.
All right. We're going to take a break here in the Coffee and program. Comments and questions can be called in, 766-1240, and we do have another message to get to that has been written into me. We will get to that when we come back on the Coffee and program.
Here's a message from Krakow Deli Bakery Smokehouse on Social Street in Woonsocket. They want you to know they are open for takeout. Tuesday through Friday, senior hours from 8:30 in the morning till 10 a.m. 10 to 6 for everybody. Saturday hours are 8 to 4. Krakow Deli Bakery Smokehouse, Social Street, Woonsocket.
Call 877-DRIVE-ED.
Who's Ed? That's the number for Levante's Auto School.
You can't wait to get your license. You want to get behind the wheel and drive. Let's roll. You want to be in control, but you gotta learn how to survive.
Learning how to drive. For most teenagers, it's an important time in their life. In fact, most teenagers look forward to it for a long time. When your teenage son or daughter is ready, why not select Levante's Auto School, 4-star rated, and a school that understands how important it is to get a good start. Levante's also makes it extra convenient by scheduling classes at night, on weekends, and during school vacations. They accommodate your schedule. Levante's Auto School, 1-877-DRIVE-ED, accepting Rhode Island and Massachusetts students.
That's Levante's Auto School.
And now, Levante's Auto School is certified by both Rhode Island and Massachusetts to teach the driver's training course over the Internet. No need to wait. Call now.
Have you had it with poor service? When was the last time you were treated like a valued customer where you bank? Navigant Credit Union feels you should be treated better than a customer. When you go to Navigant, you're treated like a friend and a member of the family, because that's just what you are at Navigant Credit Union. When you're a member of Navigant Credit Union, you're a part owner of the whole place. And that's a big difference between the big banks and Navigant Credit Union. And it's a difference you can feel, too, every time you walk in. Visit Navigant Credit Union today at any one of their many Rhode Island locations and see what it's like to be appreciated. Navigant Credit Union. Member NCUA.
The Coffee and Panel is enjoying coffee from Down East Coffee in Pawtucket. They're a 62-year-old family business that roasts all its coffee right here in Rhode Island. Founded originally as Excellent Coffee Company, they provide great coffee to food service establishments throughout New England.
On ON Radio.
Coffee In on ON Radio. This is Joe Callahan here with Dave Richards, and Bob Lotter is on the phone with us. And good morning to both of you. I do have a message that has been written in to the Coffee and Panel on a completely different subject than what we were talking about. This is more on a nationwide topic. The aftermath in Minneapolis. These 4 policemen will be brought to justice. However, there's no need to set fires to buildings and looting all over the city. This is a racial reaction, and these offenders should have their day in court as well, quite possibly maybe arson charges. And there was another person killed in the in Minnesota last night as well. because of the looting and what was going on there. So it's a tough time in Minneapolis over the last couple of days. Also,
and I think that the caller is correct in suggesting that people who are engaged in arson or looting are violating the law, and they should be prosecuted if they're apprehended. Yes.
I agree. I don't know if they will be, although I have seen some quick videos this morning that shows people's faces. It looks like they were looting a Target store, but then again, I don't know if this was actually in Minnesota. Quite possibly it was, but I'm not sure. Now, in kind of in relation to this, do you think this is overkill? The University of Minnesota is distancing itself from the Minneapolis Police Department. The school sent a letter to faculty, staff, and students saying it will no longer use the Minneapolis Police Department officers to work major sporting events. It comes after the recent death of a black man who was pinned down by Minneapolis police. I think that's that's you're dismissing the whole department for the actions of a few. That's what it seems to me.
I would think that is true. I think they would have to have a more detailed approach as to what did the department do with regard to its training of individuals in order to make a decision not to hire the entire staff of the department. There's always people in any organization who will violate the laws, the codes of conduct of the organization. That doesn't necessarily mean that the organization in and of itself is a terrible organization. It may mean that the organization has failed in its training, or it may mean that the organization just happens to be encumbered with one or two individuals who, for whatever reason, don't abide by the existing rules.
What we call bad hires.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You hope for the best when you hire somebody, but mistakes are made or future's not known.
True.
And these four police officers have been fired by the department.
Yeah, they can't hire them, and they can't hire these people.
Yeah.
Well, the firing surprised me because I don't know their police contract, but I thought they'd probably have some more serious protections against being fired. But they also, I understand, the FBI and the Department of Justice are investigating, along with the Attorney General, and there's a very good likelihood that they're going to be prosecuted for the death of the individual, Mr. Flynn. Yeah.
And even the mayor of Minneapolis wants charges brought up on these, or at least one officer. I don't know if they want charges brought up on all four, but even the mayor wants that. So dismissing the whole department by the University of Minnesota seems, just to me, kind of an overreach on this. And I don't know how you.
It's a typical mob reaction sort of thing.
It is, but do you expect that from colleges to have that kind of knee-jerk reaction so quickly? Yeah.
I think
even more so at colleges.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't say more so at colleges, but I think it may be a very human nature reaction to the violence and the circumstances arising from this, and the violence in the sense of the police, how they handled the individual and how they're handling it and resulted in his death. And especially when you see the various videotapes that are now being shown on television from security cameras at the scene, it seems that the entire reaction of the four officers on the site were completely negligent on the part of three of them and culpable on the part of the fourth. Their actions were pretty horrible.
Yeah. And now to bring it a little closer to home, there is a former student at Narragansett High School who's now suing, or his family is suing, the school resource officer at Narragansett High because there's now video from 2018. I guess he graduated in 2018. There's video from 2018 showing the school resource officer bringing the student down to the ground, or down to the floor. It took place inside the high school. Now, I've seen the video, and there's no audio on the video, which is too bad because it just shows the officer and the student talking. You don't know how heated the exchange is getting. But as they're walking away from each other, something else was said. The student, and you can see it, the student flips off the officer, and that's when the officer takes him down. Now, he's being sued for using excessive force. The problem is you can't hear anything.
I would ask, what was, when you say flipping him off, did the student actually approach the officer in a threatening manner or even strike the officer? Or was it merely apparently a verbal retort where he said something unpleasant to the officer and the officer reacted by having a physical contact with the student? Because if it's just the situation of saying, calling the officer an offensive epithet and the officer gets mad and punches the person in the face, yelling and saying something terrible doesn't necessarily mean that you are you're not responsible for hitting someone. Words don't necessarily constitute a assault that's likely to that's lawfully responded to by someone physically hurting you. I know that sounds convoluted and not correctly described, but just calling somebody a bad name doesn't mean that person can hit you.
Okay. Well, with no audio, you don't know what was said.
It doesn't matter what was said.
Well, Bob said...
It doesn't matter what was said. You're in a controlled environment. You're in the school. You know the student's name, or you can find it out really, really quick. It just doesn't matter what was said because, as I said, you're in a controlled environment, and apparently from the description you're giving me, the student in question was not in danger of harming themselves or others. So quick corporal action was not mandated at that time, as it would be if someone was in jeopardy. So
that's much better than I did. That's good.
It could have passed, and then you go to the office. You have the student brought in front of the school officials, and the police officer then describes what happened, and they decide whether civil or school discipline is necessary.
Well, like Bob asked, no, there was no physical altercation, Bob, where the student
the way you described it, they were both walking away from each other.
At that point, they had a conference. It looks like they're talking to each other face to face, and then they're done, and now they're walking away from each other, and that's when the student does his action with his hands, and then the officer, turns around and grabs him and brings him to...
On the other hand, now we just stated a truth, but on the other hand, a reality is police officers are, and I hope they always will be, human beings. And if we do not treat them with respect, we're never going to get respect back, because that's just what happens among human beings. You must respect the rule of law and those who enforce it, and then use the law itself to demand recourse, a redress of your grievance, should you feel that whoever enforced the law overstepped their bounds.
Without having any audio,
are you taking the bar exam very soon, Dave?
No. I leave that to stuff. I leave that stuff to guys like you. I hate to type.
Well, Bob, if Bob,
the answer is very good.
But Bob, with no audio, if and let's just, I'm going to put audio in, just using my imagination. What if the student said he was going to shoot the officer or stab him or something like that, and then flipped him off? Would the officer be in his rights to take him down at that time?
Go ahead, answer, Bob.
I think that the officer is not standing there as a blind individual. He may hear a student say, I'm going to pull a gun and shoot you, but the officer then makes the observation, does the individual have a gun? Does the individual present any kind of appearance of actually fulfilling this threat, or is this merely just a verbal epithet that's thrown at him? And I think that in that flash quick second, if the officer doesn't perceive a danger, then his action in striking the child may in fact be wrong, because just saying something bad, as Dave said, doesn't mean that you have the right to hit somebody who has said something bad to you.
Okay.
The
Well, we'll
officer
see.
very easily could have, if he was not in control of the student. And obviously, you have to remember something else. First day in the police academy, they start teaching you law. The first physical thing they teach you in the police academy is you must always be in control of the situation. Gain control of the situation, and then they teach them how the right ways to do this. So if he was feeling that he was losing control of the situation, that may have been a factor, but it's not a reason, I think, for what you described to me to happen if it's accurate. Now, here's the other thing. What I might have done if I were the school resource officer would be to raise my voice to a commanding level and say, "Student, follow me to the principal's office now."
Okay. Well, hindsight's always 20/20.
Well, of course it is, isn't it? And every one of us have experienced things in our life where hindsight's 20/20, and we wish we had done it differently. Perhaps a car accident or whatever situation, an argument in the family, and you realize that you could have handled it better later on. And as I said at the beginning, I'll repeat it one more time. Police officers, as the representatives of the rule of law in our society, are human beings, and my personal hope is that they always remain human beings.
Okay. Well, like we mentioned, the family of the student, who's an adult now, is suing the police officer.
Yeah, everybody needs some money.
But if it does come to court, it'll be his word, and then it'll be the police officer's word, and they'll try to put together what actually happened, and he might not win, or he may win. They may settle. You never know.
And since we're finishing up here, and we have a licensed attorney on with us, Joe, let me just say, Bob, yeah, I was pretty cavalier there saying, yeah, everybody needs some money. But don't you see so frequently the lawsuits are basically punitive in nature, where somebody doesn't like somebody else and they're trying to get some money out of them?
Well, in today's, in any century's economy, people who feel aggrieved want to have some kind of compensation for it, and money is the most visible means of compensation. So yeah, you're right.
Was I out of line in just dismissing the fact that he's suing him now 2 years later as the fact that he wants some money?
No, I think there's a statute of limitations on things. You can't sue way beyond the date of a particular incident, and it varies from what your basis of the allegation is. For example, in a motor vehicle accident, you have 3 years from the time of the injury in order to bring a lawsuit against the perpetrator of the accident. But, I don't think it's endemic to just this time either. I think this is true with all litigation.
Yeah, that was my
point. It's gone on
point.
for centuries.
Yeah. That was my point. It's what happens.
Well, it's a way of getting compensation. I mean, a motor vehicle accident where, you see the guys on TV who are very effective in getting money for their clients. But those people who've been injured, I mean, you can't restore them back to their former self before the accident.
Right.
And so what kind of compensation can you give them? Money. That's the way it is.
Right.
I understand.
We have this.
By the way, Dennis is on the line, Joe, so perhaps we want to move on to our break.
We will. Just one more thing about people wanting money. We had the story a couple of days ago, and it turns out, Bob, like over 400 people have come forward to say that they are the child of Jeffrey Epstein.
400 people?
Yes, 400. And say, oh yeah, I'm his child. So give me some of his that $634 million estate he has, and give me some of that. Over
Jeffrey
400.
must have been extremely
busy.
Active.
Busy, yeah, active, right.
All right, we're going to take a break here on the Coffee and program. It is time for the forecast right now, which is being brought to you by the T.J. Martell Foundation. And we are going to have cloudy skies today. I got to get to my forecast. Hang on. Cloudy skies today and a high temperature near 79. Could be a little windy today. Wind gusts as high as 20 miles per hour. Tonight, cloudy skies with a chance of rain. Chance of rain's at 50%. Low temperature around 66. Continued windy tonight with wind gusts up to 20 miles per hour. Friday, we have a mostly cloudy day with a chance of rain late in the day on Friday and high near 77. Friday night, more clouds and a chance of rain Friday night as well, and a low temperature Friday night of around 65. Saturday, showers likely, possibly a thunderstorm throughout the day as well. It'll be mostly cloudy, high near 79. Looks like the sun comes back on Sunday with a high temperature near 74. And the
Presently
TJ Martell.
outside the Navigant Credit Union broadcast studio, it is 71 degrees and rising.
Thanks, Dave. The TJ Martell Foundation's Music's Promise for a Cure. To learn more, visit tjmartell.org. That's tjmartell.org. More Coffee Ants coming up. Stay tuned.
I'm here with Celeste Benjamin of the Benjamin Insurance Agency in North Smithfield. Celeste, tell me about the Benjamin Agency.
Most of our business is providing home and auto insurance. However, we feel the most important thing is to insure people. Everyone insures their home, their autos, which are really just objects. I don't know if you know this, Dave, but only 57% of Americans even have life insurance. You may get into an accident, you may have a claim on your home, but life insurance is a guaranteed payout for your family. We are here to keep your family going. Our family serving your family.
You're in good hands with Allstate and Kara and Celeste Benjamin of the Benjamin Insurance Agency, 125 Eddie Dowling Highway, across from Dowling Village in North Smithfield, 765-5000.
Outdoor dining is now being offered at River Falls Restaurant. Come and enjoy your meal with the Blackstone River in the background. You need to make a reservation in order to eat outside at River Falls, so call 401-235-9026 for reservations. And your party needs to be 5 people or less. River Falls Restaurant is ready to provide you with their great burgers, combo meals, seafood, pasta, chicken, veal, and prime rib. Come and enjoy your meal outside at River Falls Restaurant, Market Square, Woonsocket. Call for reservations today, 401-235-9026, 235-9026, River Falls Restaurant.
Casey Kasem has unlocked the American Top 40 Vaults and is replaying original shows from the 70s. This week, Casey takes you back to May 27, 1978. That's when Jimmy Buffett enjoyed a cheeseburger in paradise. Andy Gibb was shadow dancing. George Benson performed on Broadway. And Michael Johnson was feeling bluer than blue. You'll hear those songs and all the top 40 hits from May 27, 1978, right here on American Top 40, the 70s.
It's Coffee In on ON Radio. This is Joe Callahan here with Dave Richards and Bob Lauder. And Bob and I have known to enjoy a cheeseburger in paradise on a number of occasions. Isn't that correct, Bob?
Yes. Unfortunately, it's not going to be this year. I think they've postponed Mansfield until next year.
Hang on to your tickets to August 14th of 2021 to see Jimmy Buffett, by the way. All right, we're also being joined on the phone right now by Dennis Grollo from Mobility by Dennis. Good morning to you, Dennis.
Good morning.
Nice to have you here with us. We'll be with you in just a second. But, Bob, time for a first message from your law office, please.
Great, thank you. I'd like to start the announcement this morning with a short story that my good friend Marilyn Pelican sent to me. My buddy Jim was a single guy living at home with his father and working in the family business. He knew that he would inherit a fortune once his sickly father died. He wanted 2 things. 1, to learn how to invest his inheritance, and 2, to find a wife to share his good fortune. One evening at an investment meeting, he spotted the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. Her natural beauty just took his breath away. "Hey, I may look just like an ordinary man," he said to her, "but in just a few years, my dad will die, and I'll inherit $20 million. Woman was impressed. She took his business card. 2 weeks later, she became a stepmother. Women are so much better at estate planning than men.
I'm sorry, Bob. I missed it. I couldn't control myself. I hadn't heard that story before.
I thought it was a great one. I wish I could take credit for it. I can't imagine that type of estate planning. I can assist you with the less exciting and less heart-pounding kind. That's the kind that makes sure that your wishes and desires are respected and fulfilled after your death, with the least amount of controversy and conflict. If you think my office may be of assistance to you in this or other legal matters, please contact me for a telephone conference. My name is Bob Lauder. My telephone number is 401-762-4550. And the disclaimer. The Supreme Court of Rhode Island licenses all attorneys in the general practice of law. The court does not license or certify any attorney as an expert or specialist in any field of practice. Thank you.
All right, Bob, thank you very much. All right, we're being joined by Dennis Grollo from Mobility by Dennis. Thanks for joining us once again, Dennis. And Mobility by Dennis, they make the finest wood and aluminum wheelchair ramps to the that can be installed at your home if needed. So, Dennis, how long have you been installing these ramps?
I've been in business since actually 1999. In my web page and all, I rounded off to 2000, but I've been doing it for 20 years.
Fantastic. Now, what made you decide to start building these kind of ramps?
Well, my dad, because of diabetes, became dependent on first a cane and then a walker and then a wheelchair, and him and I enjoyed going out to lunch once a month or so, once a week rather. And when he got to the point of needing the wheelchair full-time, I had to take a van that I had and modify it to put a ramp on it so we could get the electric wheelchair in and out. And people would say to me, hey, where'd you get that? I want one of those. I said, well, I built it in my driveway. And then I was looking to make a career change. I had been in the industrial world all my life around machinery. Mm-hmm. And I said, boy, here's a growing market. More and more people are getting older. That's the good news, and they want to get out and enjoy themselves. They don't want to stay in the house just because they're in a wheelchair. So I started a business, and it evolved into people wouldn't come in to buy wheelchairs from me because Medicare was paying for them, and I didn't do Medicare. But they would come in and say, my mother's got this electric wheelchair, weighs 300 pounds, and she can't get out of the house. So the old expression, the light bulb went off in my brain, and I said, I'm going to build wheelchair ramps. So I started doing that. And for those who are new to all of this, 20 years ago was like 100 years ago in a lot of things. 20 years ago in the mobility business. Now you pick up a newspaper and you see an ad for a walk-in tub. You see this, you see all of these things. But so I started doing out of wood wheelchair ramps, and it's just been a life-changing experience for me. It really is that feel-good business. When you build a ramp, you're giving people back their safety and their freedom. More than
Can you install a ramp in someone's home within one day, or does it take a little longer?
Typically, once it arrives, in the case of a metal ramp, it has to come from the factory. They custom make it to my dimensions that I give them. But I've come up with a system that I can pre-build wheelchair ramps out of wood. And that allows me to do them in one day for as much as half the price of a metal wheelchair ramp. Metal wheelchair ramps, the price just goes up dramatically every year because of the cost of metal, I suppose. But so to answer your question, I can do a wooden ramp, which has a lot of benefits. For one thing, you can paint the railings to match your house, or do them in a white trim or something to make it look more attractive. I've had people say to me, oh, that aluminum ramp, it screams, it's like this big albatross sitting in your front yard typically. So answer your question, yes, I can do them in one day.
All right. Dennis, where are you based
out of? A wheelchair ramp, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Dennis, where are you based
out of? It has to have a gradient. You can't go more than so many inches per foot. You must run into situations where you can't do that in just a straight ramp. You have to zigzag it around, or what's the worst situation you ever had with something like that?
The ratio you're talking about is 12 to 1 for every inch of height. And if you think of it as a stair, typically a stair is 7.5 to 8 inches. So every stair you have going into your house needs 8 feet of ramps. Typically, a ranch house will have 3 steps going in, so that's a 24-foot ramp. And if it gets to be 5 or 6 feet, if you're going up to, say, a deck, or you have a raised ranch or something like that, you could be looking at a 50 to 60-foot ramp, which it looks like you're waiting in line to get into Disney World or something by all the turns and everything, So that's the ADA recommendation. It is only, by the way, a recommendation for a homeowner. Sometimes you have to go a little bit less because there simply isn't room. You can't put people out into the street. So, but it's a good thing to go by, and everybody goes by it.
Okay. Dennis, where are you based out of?
Well, I live in Franklin. I have an office and warehouse in Plainville, but I don't have a store. No, I had one, but it's no longer necessary. But I like to cover within, say, 90 minutes of the Franklin area. I can pretty much cover all of Rhode Island down to the Cape. I like to stop at the canal if I can. But I have gone down to the Cape. I've gone all the way up to Marlborough. There's one thing, if I have a moment, there's a similarity between myself and what your other friend there, Bob, mentioned about financial planning. If people want to stay in their homes, they have to look at that home in the same way they look at financial planning. Do a little bit each year to accomplish what you want, even if it's 5 years from now, of staying in that home. So I'm offering a free service if I will come out and take a look at your house and say, well, let's say the person is using a walker right now. I will point out things to them that they can do to improve the safety of that home. And also, then you can take that plan and spend a little bit of money each year rather than saying, oh, my God, we got to spend $30,000 so the mom can stay in the house. You know what I'm saying? So there's quite a similarity between financial planning and aging in place is a common term in my industry, aging in place.
Okay. Now, you can reach Dennis. You can go on his website, which is mobilitybydennis.com, or you can give Dennis a call. Dennis, what's your phone number?
508-254-6699.
All right. We got more questions. Okay. We got more questions for Dennis to come up. So let's take another break right now. So, Bob, time for a second message from your law office, and then we'll continue with Dennis.
Thank you. A recent article in the Evening News reported that with the COVID-19 unofficial quarantining in place, the nerves and the emotions of a lot of us are beginning to reach the breaking point with regard to our personal relationships with those whom we are confined. Quite simply, we can't stand the other people we're with. In the event that the behavior of someone who is self-quarantining with you has reached the point where it's become a physical or emotional threat to you, you should consider securing a restraining order from the court. This order will restrain that individual from having contact with you, both physical contact and telephone or internet contact, and will serve to remove that individual from your place of residence. Even in this COVID-19 lockdown, the courts will consider issuing ex parte restraining orders on an emergency basis. It does not require an attorney to file for such a restraining order. If you live in the northern Rhode Island area, you should telephone the Domestic Violence Coordinator at 401-458-3372 to discuss the problem and to arrange an appointment. If your relationship has been confirmed by marriage and you believe it's in your best interest to consider a divorce, I'd be pleased to discuss this issue with you. You may contact me for a telephone conference. My name is Bob Lauder, and my telephone number is area code 401-762-4550. And the disclaimer, the Supreme Court of Rhode Island licenses all attorneys in the general practice of law. The court does not license or certify any attorney as an expert or specialist in any field of practice. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Bob. And, Bob, I saw a funny cartoon online about a week or so ago, and it was a drawing of a man and a woman, and they were in an office speaking with a lawyer because it said attorney at law on the lawyer's desk. And the man was kind of ranting and said, yes, I agreed to stay with you through for better or for worse, but there are no mentions in the vows about quarantine. I said, that's right. So it's never mentioned at all. That's true. All right, more Coffee Hands coming up. If you have any comments or questions, especially for Dennis Grollo from Mobility by Dennis, give us a call, 766-1240, or email them into me, joe@woonsockеtradio.com.
When in doubt, select Chan's and enjoy a wide variety of entrees, including great seafood like 5-spice shrimp, lo mein, and vegetarian specials. Chan's also features many combination entrees and house favorites like Oriental chicken and Mongolian steak. And don't forget their award-winning wonton soup. Chan's Four Seasons showroom can accommodate up to 125 persons for special occasions. Chan's at 267 Main Street, Woonsocket, 765-1900. Open 7 days a week, including lunch at 11:30 a.m. Chan's, just a few steps from the Stadium Theater. There's a new feature at valleybreeze.com that will make it easier to find the business or deal you're looking for, as well as share their ads with family and friends. Head to valleybreeze.com. At the right, find This Week's Ads. Click it and you'll see all the ads that were in the Breeze's 5 newspapers. Maybe you've finished with your paper or are recalling an ad you noticed a few days ago. Just use the search function and the ad is right there, ready to be printed or shared. Merchants, share your ads on social media. The Valley Breeze. Our mission is your success.
Our lives have changed in many ways since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. Spending more time at home has given us opportunities to organize, try new recipes, and take virtual fitness classes. We've embraced distant learning and connect with work and friends through Zoom meetings. But what about your children's mental health? Have you talked to them and asked them how they're feeling? Remember to check in with your kids. Take a walk with them, share a meal, and offer your support. Talk early, talk often, talk now.
This message sponsored by the Blackstone Valley Prevention Coalition and the Department of Behavioral Health Care, Developmental Disabilities, and Hospitals.
It's the Coffee and program on ON AM and FM, 1240 AM, 99.5 FM. This is Joe Callahan, along with Dave Richards. Bob Lauder's on the phone, and we're also talking with Dennis Grollo. He is the owner and operator of Mobility by Dennis, and Dennis installs wood and aluminum ramps for wheelchairs and scooters at your home if need be. And Dennis, just taking a look at your website, mobilitybydennis.com, it seems you get phone calls from nursing home and assisted living places of people that are leaving those places and that will need your services at the person's home. Is this something that where you've reached out to these places to offer your service?
One of them have searched me out, or I meet them at small fairs, health fairs that Council on Aging do. I love doing those tabletop display shows, we call them. And and what happens also when you're, say you unfortunately have an amputation of a foot and you're leaving the hospital, Medicare requires that your home be considered safe before you can leave the hospital. And if you're now committed to a wheelchair and you don't have a ramp going in and out of your house, they consider that to be an unsafe situation. So I've had calls where I remember one that maybe makes me laugh now, but it was a Friday afternoon, of course, and I said, well, a lady calls me, a discharge coordinator, and she said, can you go over and give these people a price on a wheelchair ramp? I said, sure, I can get there Monday if that's good. She said, they're sitting in the wheelchair at the door. They're ready to leave now.
Wow.
And we cannot let them leave unless they have an agreement with you. You don't have to build the ramp today, but we have to know that, because in an emergency, that person couldn't get out of the house. So
right,
the house
yeah.
is considered unsafe, a fire or, something like that. So, and the other thing I do that I like to point out is stair climbers, stair lifts, call them what you'd like. But these are the devices to help you go up and down to the second floor of the house to keep you safe. And, stairs, falls are the most dangerous thing for a person of age, or anybody, I suppose. But go up and down those stairs when you're contemplating, holding on to the handrails, and if your balance is not good, boy, that's a scary thing. And so those two products can keep you in your home safely and avoid going to an assisted facility that may cost thousands of dollars per month.
Can you talk about the stair thing a little bit more detailed, Dennis?
Sure.
Now, I understand if you go up a straight flight of stairs, suppose you have stairs that curve around or make a U-turn on a landing and then continue further up. How do you handle that?
Well, that's interesting because in the last year, maybe a year and a half, the manufacturers have come out with a camera, a digital camera, and you put markers on the stairs. They look like a little reflector. And you put those every 5 or 6 steps. And when you take a photograph of that, they then feed it into the computer, and it designs that curve, because that curve is the key point. You could have 2 houses next door to each other built by the same contractor, and the curve is going to be different just enough so that you have to custom make a stair climber. But yes, it can be done. It can be done.
Very good. Now, Dennis, in terms of people being able to afford your service, is it covered by Medicare or any kind of insurance?
No.
Okay.
Insurance, there may be, of course, there could be an insurance company out there that would cover it, but generally speaking, the answer is no. The only time I've seen people become compensated for a wheelchair ramp is if there was an auto accident or a workman's compensation claim. And in that case, they like to rent them until a person is, back on their feet. It's really weird. I understand, I guess, the philosophy of Medicare. Their philosophy is they want to make you safe within the home.
Okay.
Not
so this
to
is
be able to get
outside?
out of the home. But I think that may change, but the answer typically is no, I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to check on that. You just mentioned something about the possibility of it was just in my head. Not a permanent ramp. Do you put in just temporary ramps too?
Well, these ramps are considered temporary because they're not attached permanently to the house. They're easily removable. And the thing on the wooden ramps that pat myself on the back, I've devised a system where I could bolt them together the same way I would bolt together an aluminum ramp. Therefore, when you no longer need it, it can easily be removed and sold. In fact, when I sell a ramp, I tell the people up front how much I will buy that ramp back from them. After 2 or 3 years is gone by and they no longer need it.
Wow!
If they move or something like that. That's one advantage. The metal, that's always been an advantage. The aluminum ramps is you can take them apart and sell them.
Yeah.
But with a wooden ramp, you destroy the thing, take it apart. But I bolt it together the same way, so it's a nice system.
Okay.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. I know the word I was looking for. So you sell the ramps, you don't rent the ramps, correct?
Yes, I do rent ramps.
You do?
It doesn't happen very often, but I do rent them.
So someone could come and say, I know I'm only going to need this for a month or two, and that's it. And
right.
You would rent them for that. Okay.
Yes.
How
like
many
like I mentioned, an auto accident, whereas, it may be a serious injury, but it's going to go away and you're going to recover. So a rental is appropriate in that condition, that situation.
Okay. Go ahead, Bob.
Do you have any kind of financing programs, Dennis, where if I couldn't afford the ramp right at the start, I can make a deal where I pay over a period of time or something along those lines?
I don't do that directly. I've inquired of loan companies, small banks that loan for that type of thing, but they're not real excited about doing it. And with today's world, almost everybody has a credit card, so if necessary, you could, put it on a credit card. And then each state has some financing options. Massachusetts has a home modification program. I'm sure Rhode Island has something similar, and I can put the people in those directions.
Oh, good.
In fact,
great.
Let me mention while I think of it is the Council on Aging's, we also call senior centers, they have just a wealth of knowledge about all of these financing and things of that nature. So for people who are newly seniors, I'd like to point them in the direction of their Council on Aging in whatever town they live in for information.
On the wooden ramps, Dennis, on the wooden ramps, do the homeowners have to maintain upkeep on them? Do they have to be stained every year or painted or anything like that?
No, the deck of the ramp and the frame of the ramp is made with pressure-treated wood.
Mm-hmm.
We can stain that. They can stain that after a few months. All pressure-treated wood needs to age a little bit. But I use, on the railings, I use pine boards because you don't want pressure-treated where anybody's going to touch it, especially a person, of age, because if you get a sliver from a pressure-treated wood, you're going to get sick. So that can be, and quite often is stained just like your house would be, but I would say probably a stained wood like that is probably going to go 3, 4, 5 years before it needs any upkeep. But other than that, there's no upkeep. These I can go right now in Franklin and see wheelchair ramps that I did 15 years ago, and they still look fine.
Still look good?
Yep.
Well, that's good. Are they the wood ones? Since you're using pressure-treated wood, are they termite-free? You don't have to worry about pests and things like that? Carpenter ants?
not at all. No, that the pressure-treated frame will take care of that.
All right. That's good. That's good to know. So, Dennis, can you give us a ballpark figure of what one of your ramps is going to cost? Go small and something really large.
Let me say what the typical ramp is. I seem to build, on average, I build more 28-foot ramps than anything else, and that's because of the 3 steps, as I mentioned to you. Each 3 steps equals 24 feet of ramp, and then a platform to go on the porch, so that when you come out of the house, there's no step down. Mm-hmm. And typically, those ramps in wood cost $2,800. Now it would be $5,600 for an aluminum ramp.
Wow, what a difference!
That's a lot less than I would have expected. Wow.
Yeah.
Yes. And the other, what? Nobody would know this unless you're in the business, but if I buy an aluminum ramp, it's going to come out of the Midwest somewhere. The freight alone for the trucking company is $1,000.
That was going to be my question.
That's what drives the price up. Whereas I go to Home Depot and buy the lumber, there's no freight cost.
Right. So it's all in the shipping to get it out here.
Yeah, shipping has gone crazy.
Yeah. But what would be a reason that most people give you that say, no, I want it metal and I don't want it. I don't want the wood one. They must say something.
Well, I'm the only one building wooden ramps, so people are used to. In fact, they're surprised when I tell them I can do a wooden one. I can't think of any. Some people think it looks better. It just it's like you want a red shirt and somebody else wants a blue shirt. It's just there's no real advantage of one over the other.
No, you can't say one lasts longer than the other, correct?
No, both of these are going to be there a long time after you and I are gone. Like I said, I have ramps out there that are 20 years old.
Mm-hmm.
It's like your deck, it's like the deck on your house. If you take care of it a little bit, it's going to be there for a long, long time. And in fact, I hardly ever get a call back. I do a written 1-year warranty, but I actually will guarantee or warranty, correct word, that ramp for as long as you own it. And unless you back your car into the handrails or something, I'll take care of it free of charge.
So if people are interested, Dennis, you'll come out and do a free estimate for them?
Yes, I'll do an estimate, and if they'd like, I'll do a home assessment, very simple, of me walking around the house looking for things that they won't think of because I've been in the business, and give you some ideas of you may want to consider this, that, or the other thing, because there are a lot of things that keep you safe within the house that don't necessarily cost a lot of money.
All right, we've come to the end of the...
Okay.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Dennis Grollo.
Dennis, can you give us your phone number again?
508-254-6699. You can call 7 days a week.
Very good. And also check out Dennis's website, which is mobilitybydennis.com. Simple enough. Dennis, Dennis Grollo, thank you for joining us today on the Coffee and program. Good information about what you offer, what you can offer people. Thank you very much.